Sure. I'd like to call the December Atherton Rail Committee meeting to order. Item 1 is roll call. Robert, can we get the roll call?
Chair Kay.
Here.
Vice Chair Malbec.
Here.
Malcolm Dudley. Malcolm?
Yes, here.
Okay. Jack Ringham.
Did Jack leave the room?
Looks like he may have left and he's muted right now. We'll get back to him. Greg Conlon. Not yet. Oh, I have somebody in the waiting room. Here we go. Greg Conlon. Not yet. Paul Jones.
Here.
Okay. Jim Jans emailed saying that he wouldn't attend. Jim Massey.
Here.
Okay. Councilmember Wiest.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So
Let's move on to item number 2.
okay. Go ahead.
Are there any public comments? Hearing none. Let's move to item number 3, the approval of minutes. Does anyone on the committee have any changes? If not, can I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
So who was the first and who was the second there?
Jim was first, I think.
All right.
and then who was it? Paul, were you the second?
I was the one who said second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay,
Any abstentions? The motion passes. The minutes are approved. Okay, we're on to number 4, presentations, and we have CALTRAIN here to present on their electrification progress.
Give me a second. I'm going to pull up their presentation and share my screen.
For the committee's understanding, the constant warning time presentation was for our reference. We can ask questions about it, but CALTRAIN will just be presenting on the Peninsula Corridor Electrification Project for now at this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they'll be making a presentation. They may highlight or talk about the constant warning time system, but the committee is able to ask questions on it because it's part of the overall system. So,
Okay, great.
Brent, are you going to kick it off?
Yeah, I'll start it. Thanks, Robert. Hi, everyone. My name is Brent Tejan. I'm the Community Relations Officer for CALTRAIN. On the call, we have Lynn Guan and Stacy Koch from the project team as well. And we will be happy to answer any questions at the end. But we're here tonight to provide a quick update on the CALTRAIN electrification project. Next slide. So I'll provide a quick overview of the CALTRAIN system, although I know you all are familiar with it, as well as a quick overview of the project and the progress on the general project, and then chat about the actual progress in Atherton itself. Next slide. So a quick reminder, CALTRAIN runs from San Francisco down to Gilroy. Currently, we have 70 weekday trains. That's down from our usual 92 due to COVID. We have a number of at-grade crossings, viaducts, and bridges, a lot of intermodal connections with BART, not AC Transit, ACE, Capital Corridor, and Muni, as well as pre-COVID, we had a robust bike commuter program on board as well. Next slide. So a quick overview of the CALTRAIN electrification project. We'll be electrifying the 51 miles from San Francisco down to Tamian Station in San Jose. We don't own the tracks south of Tamian, so we're not electrifying that portion of the corridor at this time. Basic project elements are the installation of what is called an overhead contact system, which is concrete foundations, poles, and wires, as well as the installation of traction power facilities to provide and regulate the power to the overhead contact system. There are 10 traction power facilities, 3 different types along the corridor. The closest ones to Atherton are in Palo Alto and Redwood City. On the electric train side, we are procuring 19 7-car train sets, which equals 133 electric train cars. We received additional funding in 2018 from the TIRCP program to buy additional cars. Next slide. So the speed after electrification will remain the same. However, we will be able to increase the service from 5 trains an hour per direction up to 6 trains per hour per direction. This will allow us to have more station stops and or reduced travel time. And we will continue to have a mixed fleet service on the corridor. So we will have diesel until we can fully electrify at a later date. And we'll continue our tenant service, providing service to ACE, Capital Corridor, Amtrak, and Freight as well. Next slide. So just some general project benefits. We'll have improved train service, increased service, greater capacity. We'll have improved regional air quality as well as reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Both positive, both direct and indirect economic benefits for the region, as well as reduced engine noise from trains. Next slide. A quick look at the schedule for the project. We broke ground in the summer of 2017. We received additional funding, as I mentioned, for additional electric cars in 2018. And we're currently in the manufacturing stage for the cars and the installation stage for the infrastructure along the corridor. We will have passenger service in 2022, and we'll have additional capacity improvements beyond that. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of the electric train progress. You can see here our facility in Salt Lake City. It's by a company named Stadler. We have 46 car shells that are currently at the facility in Utah. And the first 2 train sets have been put out on the test track for both dynamic and static testing earlier this year. We expect to have the first train sets on JPB property in late spring of next year. Next slide. And if you haven't already had a chance, I encourage you to go to calmod.org/VR. You can take a look at the new trains in a virtual reality setting. And we also have what are called VR viewers, where you can fold them up and get a 3D look at the trains. And if you'd like one of those, you can fill out the form at calmod.org/VR. It's a great way to get a sense of what the new cars look and feel like. Next slide. So for construction, we broke the project down into 4 different segments. The first segment is in San Francisco and Brisbane. The second segment is from South San Francisco down to Menlo Park. Third segment is from Menlo Park to Santa Clara. And the fourth segment is from Santa Clara down to the Tamian station in San Jose. It's important to note these segments because a lot of the work is happening in segment 4, the southern section first, as that will be the first segment to be electrified. As I mentioned, we have 10 traction power facilities along the corridor, and there'll be 2,600 poles installed along the corridor, along the 51 miles.
Judy, I got low battery. What do I do?
Next slide. Here are just some pictures of the construction work happening along the corridor. On the top left, you can see the poles being installed. On the top right, that's some of the tunnel work that was done in the tunnels in San Francisco. We had to install the overhead contact system through the tunnels as well. The bottom left is just a picture of the potholing work that goes. And then the bottom right is a picture of the installation of insulated joints along the corridor. I should mention also we have about 1,400 poles installed along the corridor right now. For Atherton in particular, we have 24 of the 32 foundations installed, 10 of the 24 poles installed. Currently, there's no wires installed in Atherton, but we expect the remaining poles and foundations and wires to be installed in early 2021. Next slide. So for foundation, the basic activities that occur are excavation, rebar and anchor installation, electrical grounding, and concrete fill. Next slide. This is just a picture of some of the foundation work. On the right-hand side, you can see the rebar cage going down into the ground. And on the bottom left, you can see the formwork that's done around the foundation. Next slide. After the foundation is cured and the formwork is removed, crews will come back and install the poles. Most of this work is done through on-track equipment, as you can see on the right-hand side, the on-track crane equipment being installed. Next slide. After a continuous set of poles are installed along the corridor, crews can come back and string the wire. They can string about a mile of wire at a time. Again, that's done via on-track equipment seen here. Next slide. Just a general overview of the construction. A lot of the work does happen at night when there's not train service. But since we had to reduce service due to COVID, there is some additional windows during the day that work can be done. There is some around-the-clock weekend work that's necessary in certain locations. Crews utilize acoustical barrier blankets and work as hard to position lights away from homes as much as possible. And there's a dedicated hotline for any construction complaints that I'll share in a moment. Next slide. Here's just a general sense of the public outreach we do for the project. We're not having any in-person meetings at this time, but we still do physical mailers as well as electronic notices via email, social media, and our weekly update, which I'll share in a moment. Next slide. And if you're not already on our list, I encourage you to go to calmod.org/get-involved. You can get weekly updates on the project. And if you enter your city, we'll send out specific emails when there's work occurring in Atherton or whatever city you live in. There's also the CalMod general email here, calmod@caltrain.com. If you have any more questions after this meeting, feel free to reach out to us or by phone on the phone number shown here. And that's just a quick update on the project. As I mentioned, I have Lynn and Stacy on the phone or on the call, and they'll be happy to answer any questions along with me. Thank you.
All right, Brent, just to kick a couple things off, if you can give kind of a percentage update in terms of percentage of completion of the track work. I know you highlighted what was done in what's been done thus far in Atherton, but if you can give us a percentage completion and kind of where you are budget-wise in terms of the construction as well.
Yeah, I might look to Lynn for that info. Lynn, do you have that handy?
If you give me a couple minutes, I can try to pull up some
Lynn or
info
Stacy, yeah.
I can find here.
Okay. So I'll open it up for any questions while Lynn looks that up. Oh, maybe I just needed to be unmuted. Okay. I'll open it up for any questions that the committee have while Lynn looks that up.
Okay, looks like Paul, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm concerned about your accommodating the freight trains on the lines, both in terms of constant warning time at the grade crossings and the positive train control. Could you comment on that?
Hi, it's Stacy from the Electrification Project. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I heard two questions here. One in terms of positive train control, and then other in terms of the new signal system that we're going to be implementing as part of Electrification Project. So in terms of PTC, so we actually have already successfully completed with FRA approval what's called interoperability. So freight trains and any of our other tenants are required to have a system on board that is compatible with our PTC system. So that has been safety certified and approved by the FRA. So they're currently operating under our PTC system today. So there's no compatibility issues there. In terms of the constant warning time, or what we're calling really the two-speed check, is the solution that we're implementing under the electrification project. So really the crux of that, for maybe I'll just give a little bit of background for folks that aren't as familiar with that. So our current grade crossing predictor system will not work under an electrified system because it uses basically the impedance or the location of the train wheels and does a kind of constant measurement, time and distance of where that train is relative to the crossing, so that it can ensure a couple things. One, try and minimize gate downtime, but more importantly is make sure that the FRA minimum gate downtime prior to the train traveling through the crossing will be met, which is 20 seconds for FRA, and we have a more stringent requirement, which is 25 seconds along the corridor. So with the two-speed check solution, really at kind of its most fundamental description is the addition of track circuits along the rail so that it can physically detect where the train is in relation to the crossing, coupled with modified, essentially it's software of the signal houses that we have along the route so that it can communicate with the grade crossing. Part of what we've done is essentially enhance a system that is in service and has been in service for decades along the Northeast Corridor, which is the same kind of electrified rail system that we'll be implementing here, 25 kV. What we've done is we've added a timing section, and that's where you get the two-speed check so that it can detect if it's a higher speed train or a lower speed train. So this was our way to try and build upon known technology in the industry, but enhance that to try and minimize the gate downtime for freight trains or trains not traveling at the maximum authorized speed, such as coming into a station stop or pulling out of a station stop.
Has the FRA approved the two-speed check as constant warning time?
So they have approved the design. The request of FRA was not to approve it relative to constant warning time, but is it a fail-safe solution that is going to meet the minimum gate downtime requirements in terms of protecting that crossing before the train travels through the crossing.
Okay, they've approved it as a fail-safe, I see. Okay, yeah, because I think I remember last time you guys were here, you were going to do a demonstration that was going to be, a constant warning time. That was going to be a constant warning time system, but did that demonstration occur, or it's not planned anymore, or is the fail-safe the kind of the end of any approval you're looking for from the FRA?
Yeah, so it's more the latter, and I think what's more complicated about this topic is, depending on the audience, you've got, I think, more important metrics in terms of what the FRA is really concerned with. Is a couple of things. It's the fail-safe, and then really the other component is, are you going to meet the minimum warning times, which is really the time before the train travels through the crossing. And so as long as you can show that your design is consistently meeting what your required minimum warning times are, those are their two areas of focus versus what is more of a community concern, and certainly ours too, and that's why we've implemented this solution to try and consider all of the stakeholders, if you will, to meet those safety requirements, as well as the additional infrastructure with the timing section that I mentioned earlier, in order to try and as much as feasible minimize what that gate downtime the community will see is.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from committee members?
Before we go on, I think Lynn does have
Go ahead,
Lynn does have the info.
Okay, so am I good to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I think just some of the information that you were looking for. I'll start with the sort of the budget expenditure. I know that was one of the questions. So and I'll just caveat the data that I'm giving you right now. This is as of September 30th, 2020. That was the last sort of the big milestone check that we had as we put together these numbers. So as of September 30, 2020, we were about 51% through our, as far as our expenditures are concerned, going through our budget. Now I'll start with the OCS as sort of the first one to go through some metrics on the foundations. We had gone through about 63% of the foundations in total, in terms of the total amount that's being installed. We installed about 53% of the OCS poles. And then on the static and feeder wire, installed about 14%, and the contact and messenger wire about 3%. So those are the four components for the OCS, the overhead contact system. Now the traction power system is a little bit more complex because of the different disciplines that work within each of the sites. What I'll do is I'll give you sort of the three, kind of the percent completion of the three major sites. Those are the two main traction power substations, as well as a switching station. The two main substations, they're 85% complete in terms of the physical construction, and the switching station is about 70% complete. Now, the design work for all of the facilities, those are 9 out of the 10 of them are completed, with the only exception being PS3, which we were doing some coordination between our project and the future Broadway grade separation project, and that was the reason why that design got pushed back. It's now being worked on, but that design is not yet complete. And then the construction work at all the other paralleling stations are currently ongoing. So they're at different various stages. If you are interested, certainly I can go into the deeper dive into, how much of the electrical work is done, how much of the civil work is done. Just let me know and I can get into that. And then moving on to the signal side of it, really, I think a few things. So for starting point, we've gone through a vast majority of the design. So just again, as of September, in segment 1, we've gone through about 64% of the 95% design, 56% for segment 2, 12% for segment 3, and then 90% in segment 4. I think a couple of things to highlight would be we have actually performed one of the first cutovers in segment 4. So that part is being completed. We're in the process of scheduling the second cutover, and then the second cutovers for segment 1, 2, and 3, those will be scheduled in the future. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This is John Malbech then. You've given us a bunch of numbers, a sort of the percentage of the budget that's been expended so far, and then a whole bunch of components and what percentage of those are completed. And it's pretty hard, at least for me, to kind of sort this all out, because I don't know what fraction of the total cost the various components are. So can you just, in a simple 1 or 2 sentences, are you guys on budget or aren't you?
Answer is yes.
Yeah, so as of right now, we believe we are within the budget. Now, obviously, things can change as we move forward. So that's the best answer that I can give you at the moment. Like I said, without diving into all the details of every single component there.
Yeah. Along the same lines, where are you compared to sort of the original schedule that you started with?
Yeah, so I will say from a schedule perspective, we are definitely a little bit behind from our original schedule. I think the schedule update that Brent gave in his part of the presentation already reflects that we had gone behind from what the original project schedule was at the inception of the project. So that is where we are. That there's been a various amount of reasons, right, both on the construction side and on the vehicle side. That's leading us to an updated date for as far as the projected revenue service is concerned, and that's what Brent had shown earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Jack, got a question. Are you prepared? Are you prepared? I don't know. Are you prepared to talk about the overall system?
Hey, I'm sorry, there's a really bad echo. I really couldn't hear the question there.
I couldn't either.
Jack, when you ask if you can turn down your speakers, then maybe we'll lose the echo.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm concerned about the overall project from San Francisco to Anaheim and what the timetable is for that, the latest timetable, the latest total budget for that, and where we stand with regard to that total budget.
Yeah, so that actually unfortunately is not our project. The Peninsula Corridor Electrification Project is separate and distinct from High Speed Rail. So I cannot answer questions for where High Speed Railway is at. I can only tell you kind of where our project is at, what our progress is. That will be a different question for a different group.
I think I saw there's a high-speed rail update planned for later in the agenda. So that's a timely question, but yeah, certainly we're not the best suited to answer that.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Alex, I think you're muted.
You're right. I am muted. Sorry. My son came in the room and made some, was making some noise, so I had muted myself. But the one follow-up question I had about the two-speed check, the presentation you sent us was titled Constant Warning Time. So are you still pursuing constant warning time? Because I assume that's why the presentation was called Constant Warning Time. And in previous presentations to this committee, and I've seen also at CALTRAIN meetings, the goal has always been constant warning time as the goal with any system put in with electrification.
Yeah, I mean, so certainly things have, evolved as we've progressed design to, understand what truly is feasible and a safe operation. So I would say the goal has always been to get as close as possible to constant warning time that's going to meet all of the regulatory and operational requirements. And so we've been through a number of different design iterations to try and achieve that balance. And the two-speed check is really the best option that we have until the later follow-on wireless crossing system is implemented. So it was the goal, and I think that we've met that in terms of all of the stakeholders that we need to consider.
And the FRA, is the FRA considering that constant warning time or not?
Yeah, so the FRA doesn't require constant warning time. That, as I was mentioning earlier, is
okay.
what they are concerned with is that minimum warning time as well as a fail-safe solution. And the two-speed check meets those requirements, and we have received their approval on this design, and we've been meeting with them monthly, if not more frequently, really probably over the past 2 years. So they've been intimately involved in the various design options and considerations. So they're very well aware of this design and are accepting of it.
Okay, thank you, Stacy.
Could you bring us up to date on where your positive train control system is? I believe you have a purchase system, but what work has been done to implement that on the line and integrate it with your other control systems?
Yeah, so it's integrated. We received approval from FRA a few months ago. I don't remember exactly, but it's in service, it's up and running, and that work is complete. So that project is in service.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from committee members? I guess I should also open it up to the public if there's any public comments, but I don't think there's anyone from the public attending.
Alex, I just want to let you know I'm online now.
Oh, okay. Hey, Greg. Did you
had
have a
trouble-
question or a comment?
No, I didn't have any comment.
Okay. Okay. Did CalTrain, did you guys have anything you want to close up with? Or I think the committee members don't have any other comments.
No, I think we're all good. Thank you so much for your time.
Well,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Brent.
for coming to present for us.
Yeah, thanks, Brent, Lynn,
Sure, thank
and
you. Thank
Stacy.
you.
We appreciate your
Thank you,
time.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. Okay, so let's move on in the agenda. Let's see. Item 5A, high-speed rail update.
Sure. So I'm going to give a brief update based on some information that was presented by High Speed Rail at a different meeting. So I'm actually going to share my screen with a bit of their presentation, and I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. So hopefully you all can see the screen. And so they have developed a small business newsletter that they are posting in terms of their contracting and the impacts to small businesses. One of the things that they've done is they have created a website where you can look at and see some of the, I guess, visualizations of their proposed light maintenance facility in Brisbane. You can see the link there on the screen, and I can certainly forward it to folks, where you can kind of switch between before and after images on the light maintenance facilities. And as part of that, they have a realignment of Tunnel Avenue and relocation of the Brisbane fire station. This is in support, I guess, of the work that's been done on their environmental analysis. As you know, the comment period on the high-speed rail EIR is closed. They're working on addressing their comments, and as part of that, they've created this website to show the visualizations on the light maintenance facility. And they have a couple of videos that they've prepared, and if you want, I can kind of hit and show a couple of them. But this is the proposed realignment of Tunnel Avenue on the screen right now. They also gave a presentation on blended system operations based on an example in Europe with regards to Eurostar.
Good night, Richard. Sleep well.
And they've conducted some outreach to stakeholders and folks that are interested to find out a little more about how they prefer to receive information, the items of interest, so that they can focus their outreach efforts, and they'll be updating their website and other things. And so the main topic areas are the state rail plan and the future of rail in the state. As was indicated by Jack, construction progress and status, their phased implementation, when and where they plan to start service, and other items related to the business plan, cost, and funding. So those are kind of just some highlights, and what they indicated, that there's high interest in webinars and YouTube town halls, updates via newsletters, not so much interested in Instagram Live as a way to get feedback or or Facebook, but having the YouTube town halls and webinars to reach out to folks. And so that's just kind of a brief update on where high-speed rail is. I don't have much more in terms of information, but if any committee members want to speak on the topic or have specific questions or discussion, you can move into that.
What about the questions that John raised on the electrification? Could you answer those questions relating to the high-speed rail? Where they are on their schedule and cost and the 50,000-foot view of where the project is?
I don't at this point in time, but we can try and get that information for you and pass it on separately and discuss it at the next meeting.
Well, where are they on the valley? Are they got an estimate of completing the segment between Modesto and Bakersfield, or where does that stand?
I haven't been keeping tabs on the valley. I mean, our primary concern has been the work in the peninsula and specifically in the town. But like I said, we can work to get you an update on where they are percentage-wise in the valley, if that's desired.
Well, what about on our segment? They've always preached that they were going to put in quad gates at every intersection. Is that still in their game plan?
So it is in their game plan, and it was outlined in the EIR to be included. So right now, the EIR the public comment period on the EIR is closed. They're working on preparing responses to comments, and I think that by the middle to late next year is when they plan to certify their environmental document.
The TA is going to fund our quad gates at Watkins, so they're going to beat.
They're going to beat.
They're going to beat the high-speed rail.
Have we talked about that yet, Alec? I got it.
No, it's a topic forthcoming. It's all around the Atherton Station update, but
Right.
that's
So
a kind of a preview.
Yet to be discussed.
Go ahead.
Yet to be discussed.
Yes, correct.
All right, thank you.
Robert,
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Robert, do we have a link to those slides that you just showed, or can we have one?
For the high-speed rail, yeah, I can forward that.
Could you do that? That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions or further questions or comments? If not, I'll go ahead, Paul.
Do we have any information on the finances of the high-speed rail? They're staring now at a very expensive tunnel through the pass, Pacheco Pass, and they are pretty much running out of the available money. Have they found additional sources that can keep them moving?
I do not know.
Okay.
One thing that we can do is work on for next year is getting an update from High Speed Rail. They've done it in the past, and we can certainly work to get them to give an overall presentation of where they are and try and schedule that for early to mid next year.
That would be most helpful. Thank you.
I think high-speed rail is going to rely on the change in administration at the national level for additional funding, since Biden is much more favorable to rail transportation than Trump is. That's probably what they're counting on.
Well, I think the big problem will be, the question will be whether the Republicans control the Senate.
That's true too. That's true too.
I mean, that'll be the big issue, I think.
Yeah.
If they do,
It may not be a question that that high-speed rail could answer necessarily, because it's somewhat of a political question between Congress and the president, I suppose, about the funding.
yes.
They'll only be able to answer it after whatever funding is approved gets approved, if any. Okay, if there's nothing further on this topic, let's move on to the CALTRAIN update 5B.
Okay, so as you all are probably aware, Measure RR passed. And so that is going to provide, I think, $100 million annually based on sales tax revenues from the three counties, San Mateo, Santa Clara, and San Francisco. And that'll provide a more stable funding source for CalTrain's operations and capital improvements. Right now, they've been doing a lot of analysis with regards to COVID and COVID usage. As you know, the ridership has dropped significantly from the pre-pandemic levels. And what they're finding is that the majority of the riders currently are related to essential work and essential travel. Geared to and being utilized a lot by folks that do not have access to alternate modes of transportation via vehicles, et cetera. And they are looking at changing their train schedule coming up in the next few weeks, I believe. And what we've heard is that they're looking to migrate to a 2-train per hour operation throughout the day with 1 train an hour in the evening after the PM peak period, and then 1 train per hour all day over the weekend. And so what that equates to is approximately 68 trains per day during the week, and somewhere between 28 and 32 trains on the weekend. And so I don't believe that they've approved the service changes yet. But we anticipate that that might be coming through in their next board meeting and outreach efforts following that.
And that would include the cessation of weekend service at Atherton Station?
Yeah, so I'll hit that up on the next.
Okay.
Robert, I had a little trouble hearing you. How many trains per day during the week did you say?
The number that I heard was 68 trains per day.
And now there are 70, so we're not changing anything much.
Not much, but what's going to be key is the way that they've been operating the trains. And so they've been operating, I believe, with 1 train steady throughout the day, and then the other ones like centered around the peak periods. And so this will be a more constant, predictable setup. And what we haven't gotten clarity on yet is whether it's going to be a local and express service where the local train is hitting every stop, and then kind of an express, not quite a baby bullet, or a limited service where you have kind of skip stops on the different lines, or if it's going to be 2 local trains. So that's something that we haven't heard yet from them as to what the exact service schedule is going to be.
Has there been any thought given to an old Jack Ringham project to shorten the train length so they get better use of the cars they're running?
I don't know specifically, but my guess is that they've been analyzing the ridership levels, the requirement for social distancing, and figuring out what their current train setup is and what is appropriate for the level of service.
Well, the trains I see whistling by don't have a lot of people on them.
That is true.
That's the understatement of the evening. I mean, I live right there and watching.
No kidding.
You'll see, 2 people per car. I don't really understand why they need 6-car sets, but I don't know how to run a railroad either.
Well, as they told Jack years ago, they've got them coupled into those, and they don't want to change them. They don't want to switch cars.
Yeah, their September and October ridership is still down 95% year over year. So it's kind of holding steady in terms of the very low 5% ridership over the last few months.
Well, I saw the train stop at the Atherton station the other day during the week, and maybe it was the holidays that forced that. Is there anything going on there?
Well, what I would say is that usually what happens with the holidays is that they switch to Sunday service.
Yeah. I think you saw it on Thanksgiving, Greg.
I don't know what day it was. It may have been Thanksgiving.
Yeah, they were stopping here on Thanksgiving and not any of the other, well, I don't know about Friday, but I don't think so. I think it was just Thursday and then the weekend. But I mean, are there any savings to running a 2-car train as opposed to a 6-car train? I mean, I guess you got to store the other 4 cars someplace. Maybe that's the problem.
Well, it certainly takes more fuel to haul a 6-car train than a 2-car train, and more wear and tear on the cars.
Yeah, you'd think it would make sense to shorten.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
You know what the final percentage was on the passing that ballot measure? Did they get 70%? Do you know?
I don't know if they hit 70, but I know that they passed it. It passed in all 3 counties.
Well, that's amazing. Because of the opposition from San Francisco, I'm surprised it passed.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is the 5C Atherton Station closure proposal.
Yeah, so as you're aware, the council approved the memorandum of understanding and the the station area maintenance and use agreement, subject to the approval of funding by the Transportation Authority. Following the action by the town council, the JPB approved the MOU, and shortly thereafter, the TA approved the funding. I believe $4.125 million towards the station the improvements, including $400,000 to the town for the improvements to the station area, as well as for access improvements. And so the funding has been approved. The funding for the permanent fencing has been approved. The removal of the station center platform and access points will be coming out of the CALTRAIN operating budget, and funding for the design and matching money for the installation of the quad gates has also been approved. So
how much money was that?
The total allocation was $4.125 million, I believe. CALTRAIN is actively seeking the remaining funds for the quad gate installation, but it's understood that the backstop for that would be the JPB. So there is a timeline requirement for the completion of the design of the quad gates, the completion of the permanent fencing, the safety fencing at the station area, and the permanent and the installation of the quad gates. And I'm trying to recall if that was 5 years or 3 years on the on that. But the MOU, I think you've all gotten a copy of at the previous meeting. So the timetable for those improvements are all listed in the memorandum of understanding.
So that Schedule D was ultimately passed?
Yes.
I think CALTRAIN they're basically seeing if they can find grants to fund some of these projects so that they don't have to pay for it, but they agreed that they would be the backstop in case those grants don't come through. So.
And what was their total cost on Watkins?
I think they were allocating $5 million for that.
That's ridiculous.
Well, if it's less,
they
it's
did,
going to be savings to them. Our concern is getting it in.
I mean, each intersection in Orange County, there's 11 of them, spent $1 million each. How the hell they could come up with 5 million would be impossible. So are they going to come before us in due time, or is that history?
It's their job to figure out how to get it funded. So, but they said they have the funding for it. They can find the funding for it.
So,
Their money, as long as they get it done.
so for informational purposes, I mean, I did meet with CalTrain on site to talk about their upcoming work plan, just to review where the fencing would be going in. And so in essence, the fencing will be extending all the way up to Maple, the decorative fencing, so fully behind the town center project up to where it tees in there to Fair Oaks Avenue. I do have a meeting set with them tomorrow to talk about their proposed schedule. We're hoping that that's going to say we want to make sure that it conforms with the timeline that we have in our agreement. One thing they did mention is the potential of skipping temporary fencing and moving direct towards the permanent decorative fencing. So that might come in faster than we had anticipated in terms of the final fencing. And we'd like to, my concern is I'd like to see what the delay might be, if any, with regards to the temporary fencing that was planned.
I
And
think
where was that? Is that still stop at Maple?
Currently, that is the plan. I think that we've talked to them and relayed the concern that was raised by the committee with regards to implementing safety fencing of some sort all the way up to Watkins. And as you recall, we did also include that in our comment letter to High Speed Rail on their EIR.
Good for us.
As part of if they're going straight to permanent fencing, I believe the agreement was they would get some input from the town in terms of the design of the permanent fencing. So hopefully that's still occurring.
That's the plan. And so that's one of the things that they said that they would send over, and I'm hoping they'll have some information this coming week with regards to that. Just again, for information, the feedback that we've gotten thus far is that the schedule change is likely to be mid to late December. So probably in a couple of weeks is what they're looking at as the schedule change, and it'll be overall for the system, and including their intent is to have one schedule change that includes the closure of the Atherton station.
So they're going to make a schedule change before the JPB votes on it?
No,
or...
the JPB I think is meeting this week.
Oh, that's right. They haven't had their December. Oh, so it should already be part of their packet then. Okay, we can probably take a look at it if anyone's interested. Okay, that makes sense.
What was that again, Alex?
Oh, so I was asking whether the schedule change was, if it's going into mid to late this month, it would be ahead of the JPP approval. But then Robert reminded me that they haven't had their December meeting yet. So they're probably expecting that at the December meeting, which should be, I think, this Thursday, they would get the approval. And if that's the case, then it must be already published as part of the JPB packet for that meeting. So if you go to the Caltrain website, the news schedule has to be there. Otherwise, there's no way that the JPB board could approve it unless it's part of their meeting materials.
Will there be information in that package as to when the new schedule will be implemented? I'm sort of interested in knowing if the date's certain for the last train stopping at Atherton. I'd like to be there to take a picture of it.
Once we get that information, we will certainly share it. And like I said, I think that we will get the final confirmation probably after the JPB meeting.
Okay. If someone wants to go over right now to the Caltrain board website, they could probably find the packet right now and see if it's there. And before the end of the meeting, can inform all of us. I'll be conducting the meeting, so I won't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments about the?
Does that mean that we should disband the rail committee after it stops running in Atherton?
I don't think high-speed rail will be disbanding anytime soon, Greg.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go, I think one of the next items is the committee resolution.
Through the chair, if I could say a comment.
Go ahead, Kerry.
Greg, I just wanted to make a comment because Don Horsley made a comment and it referenced you and your lobbying towards the quad gates. So I just wanted you to know that all your years of lobbying Don Horsley was effective and you got special mentioned, and I just wanted you to know that. So the little lobbying, every time you see him, work.
Where did he say that at the, is he on the JPB?
He's on the Transportation Authority, TA.
Oh, the TA.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of time bugging him.
It was
I think
effective.
we've got Fair Oaks too, the same way. I don't know how that ever happened. No one ever really explained to me whether I was take credit for that also or not. I bitched enough for probably for 5 years. It's all one day it appeared.
Well, it was effective. Just wanted you to know.
All right, well, I appreciate that. That's good to know that some of this stuff I do has some
Works.
result.
Robert, if it's possible with since the permanent fencing might be coming up soon, if you could share with the committee the design, and if it's kind of a quick turnaround where they need a fast decision, we could send you if any of the committee members have comments, send you our comments about it, and then you could pass that back on. And certainly, probably the council might want to also see that as well. So, but I'll leave it up to you in terms of that. But as a request for the committee, would it be possible for you to share that permanent fencing design when CalTrain gives it to you?
I can certainly share it. The review and approval, I think, is going to be done at the staff level, but the general look is actually attached as an exhibit, but that was prior to them finding an actual vendor to provide it. So there may be a couple of tweaks on it with regards to making it conform with something that might be more readily available than their standard design. So, but the general depiction is attached to the MOU, but I'm happy when I get something to share what that's going to look like.
Yeah, because I remember it being kind of a depiction of what it'll look like, but not an actual picture. It's more of an artist rendering of it, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I'm going to say that it's a fairly standard design, and you'll see it in some of their other stations. But like I said, they had indicated that it may be slightly different depending on who provides it.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Okay, let's, if there's no more comments, let's move on to the next item, which is the we're on 5D, right? Town resolution on committee and commissions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just an update following the approval of the MOU and maintenance and use agreement. The City Council approved a couple of changes to the resolution that establishes and governs town committees. The couple of items that affect this committee are, one is with the resignation of, I'm going to say not resignation, with the vacancy that had been in place when Scott Lane left, and we didn't have any new appointees. There was a vacancy. And so the committee reduced the number of members down to 9 from 10, which gives it an odd number and makes it, in the event that there were a vote and it was, with an even number, it's hard to get a full recommendation. So they dropped it down to 9. So they are not recruiting for that position. The other item is they changed the rail policy that is the attachment to the resolution. And I can read that. It's been attached to your staff report and available through the link on the website. But in essence, it maintains the opposition to high-speed rail, but adds the more cooperative language with regards to the CALTRAIN line and the CALTRAIN corridor. Understanding that the station is being closed, the language that was there about restoring full service has been removed. And so the items that are related to the CALTRAIN corridor include the mitigation of environmental impacts associated with the modernization of the rail system, installation of safety improvements along the rail corridor through the town, including safety fencing and screening along the corridor, and the installation of 4-quadrant gates at the Watkins Avenue rail crossing, conversion of the Atherton Station building to a public amenity and civic space integrated with the Atherton Town Center, including the installation of safety fencing, removal of the center boarding platform and associated access points, installation of an active transportation route to the Menlo Park Caltrain station. And then it states that the town seeks to perfect the quiet zone within the town through the addition of 4-quadrant gates at the Watkins Avenue crossing, closure of the Atherton station, and repurposing of the station building. And it says these measures require the support and partnership of Caltrain. So we still have some work to do as a town at the station area, but the focus really of the committee is likely to migrate towards high-speed rail.
Quiet zone too.
And the quiet zone.
Well, Robert, what is the schedule on the quad gates again? I missed that in the original presentation. Is it 5 years? Is that what the
If
term?
you hold on, I'll pull up the memorandum of understanding and I'll get that information for you.
December 1st, I've got it in front of me because I wanted to look at the fencing. December 1st, 2023 is the estimated completion date.
23?
23, that is correct. So
So
today's the
it's-
1st of 2020. So 3 years from now, they've promised that it will arrive.
I wonder how you could put, because the quiet zone is contingent on that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. For this type of rail crossing, it is correct.
Well, we could give them some urgency to expedite the quiet zone?
Well,
I
I
don't have
think
no problem.
that, the MOU actually puts things in place so that we can implement it fully through the town. Their first efforts are the design. They have the money to fund the design, and I believe that there's a time period to complete that design, right, Alex? I think it's about 6 months or so.
Yeah, that's what they estimated. I'm not sure it's in the agreement, but that's kind of the design completion within 6 months of closure, and construction within three
Yeah,
years
so
of
that's
closure.
completion of construction. So the first step is design, which should be completed by mid next year. At which point they'd be putting together the bidding package and working towards completing the funding for the implementation and then putting it out for bid.
So we can just put pressure on them once they get the design done to go out for bid? Is that the next logical step?
To make sure that they have all the funding in place and then putting it out for bid. But there is, like I said, the allowance is for them to complete the design, put the package together, get a contractor in place, and to put it up. So they have 3 years to do it, which is actually pretty, I'm going to say, from the 0 point where we were to getting commitment to get it done within 3 years is pretty good.
Is there a temporary fix for the quiet zone in those 3 years? I know
No.
one of our members had all kinds of ways to do it. I just can't remember whether there's any way you could do it.
Well, the first step is going to be happening when they start removing when the station closes and the center platform is removed. there will be less need to honk the horn as they come towards Watkins.
Yes, because
I'm sorry, not
there's
Watkins, as they get towards Fair Oaks.
yeah.
And so
So
that
there's an exception. Go ahead, Robert. Sorry.
I'm going to say when that happens, that should start a good reduction on the train noise.
What were you going to say, Alex?
Oh, so rail, if it's a rail policy of the rail operator to honk the horn at stations, they're allowed to honk at going through stations and at stations if they want. So when the station is closed, that means at the station they're not supposed to honk their horn anymore. So that should produce some quiet for that area of Atherton. They can still honk their horn within approach to Watkins. So, but they should not when they're approaching Fair Oaks anymore. So northbound, they should not be honking their horn anymore between Watkins and Fair Oaks, but southbound, they could still do it within a quarter mile of the rail crossing at Watkins.
Well, the creation of the quiet zone is strictly an action of the town. It has nothing to do with Caltrain or anyone else. It's something that we do at our initiative, but the crossings have to be sufficiently protected that it can work if we extend it through Watkins.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, going backwards, what we talked about that could be done other than the quad gates that could be implemented on a temporary basis. But
yeah, there really isn't anything unless you go to really extreme measures like closing the street itself. That's not, and for this type of rail crossing, there's really not much else you can do except put in quad gates.
we put it in a one-way street, what would that do?
You'd have to have a longer gate though if you put in one-way streets. You'd have to have a gate that goes all the way to the other side. You could have one long crossbar. Right now, the crossbar would be too short.
And what would, if we put the crossbar in, what would that allow us a quiet zone?
Yeah, but essentially you've quad gated it.
Faster than the quad gates going in.
Yeah.
So like I said, we have a target date for those coming in within 3 years. I think that the efforts that the committee made and council in terms of negotiating the agreement with Caltrain gives us some certainty as that being done, and that'll be definitely a lot sooner than what was promised by or what is planned by High Speed Rail.
What is their plan?
Well, as you had indicated, their plan is to put in quad gates up and down the corridor, but that's going to be some time out. So this is something more immediate and should be completed within 3 years.
And the funding's already there, so that's always the biggest worry in my mind.
Funding's there for the quad gates
Yes, yeah, the TA approved it
out of their money
out of their money. Yes,
for $3 million?
it was 4 1/8 or
I
4
believe so,
1/4,
yeah.
but that includes more than the quad gates. But a lot of it is for the quad gates.
I guess we got to be grateful. The 3 years is quicker than 10.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions about the new resolution on the rail committee charter?
I guess we should note that the reduction in the number of members down to 9 served one purpose, but we have since had Larissa's resignation, so I guess we're 8. So we really need to get a 9th member, so we don't have tie votes, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say that the council is aware of the vacancy, and they'll have the opportunity to open up recruitment to fill it.
There's 2 more in June, aren't there? I think I expire in June of 21. Does somebody else expire at that time?
I believe so, and so they may be looking at deferring the recruitment so that there's one recruitment done to to match up, and those that are expiring are more than welcome to reapply.
Okay, doesn't sound like there's any more questions or discussion on this item. Let's move on to 5E, recognition of member contribution.
Okay, let's get back to Rosemary's plaque, which nothing has been done about yet, so far as I know. We've got the wording, but I don't know that any action beyond that has happened.
So I'll touch on that briefly. I think that now that we will get use of the site and have the building, we will be able to, the town's plan is to see if we can reorient the opening so that it faces the town center as opposed to the tracks. And so we'll be looking to do modifications to the area to integrate the building into the town center. And as part of that, I think it would be appropriate to pick the location for that plaque and how it's to be put in, whether it's going to be on the building or monumented on the site. But I know that there's been there was an understanding previously that the council did want to recognize Rosemary for her years of service to the town and the committee. And as indicated by you, Member Jones, that the committee did have some wording approved previously for that. And I think it's great that we now will have control over the site, and we can do stuff without having to go direct to CALTRAIN about making modifications to the area.
Yeah, Paul, just so you know, that was one of the goals, and it's been a discussion item. And also note that the whole town center project lacks landscaping for that conversation to occur. So once the facility is complete, the landscaping component and dealing with a lot of the issues related to the station are going to come into play. So that would be when this conversation is going to be, put into effect, where a plaque will go. And I'm sure the committee will be well involved in that.
Okay, but let's not forget.
Oh, believe me, it's not forgotten.
Good.
Good. Thank you, guys.
So I guess, Robert, you didn't get a formal chance to introduce the item. I don't know if you want to.
No, I was actually going to leave it to you, Chair.
Oh, okay, sure. Since we've had a number of changes in this town, I thought, actually, John had made the suggestion, and I agree with John about with the recent changes that we've had in this town, to recognize one or more members that have departed or are departing our committee, and to make a recommendation to council about recognizing their contributions to the town, if we can, if we agree upon such, and then we can just make the recommendation to council, and council can put forth a proclamation or whatnot based on our recommendation.
Look, if that's how we're going to do it, we ought to start by recognizing Narissa for the quiet zone, because that was her baby and she made it happen.
That's right. She drove that train.
Yeah, this is Jim. I totally agree.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes.
Hey, how does the proclamation work? I don't know who to ask the question. Terry, do we draft the proclamation for the council to consider, or do they do it?
No, what'll happen is that your recommendation will go through staff to George, and a proclamation will get made up based on staff's input with whoever, you guys on rail, I'm sure we'll work together with Robert to establish the the verbiage in the proclamation, then that will be brought to the council, and then the council through the mayor will present it to the entire council.
Well, that's good, because in Narissa's case, there were some very specific things that she did that need to be included that the council that George might not know about, so.
Absolutely.
Robert, do you need a couple volunteers from the committee to help on that, or you're good?
Sure, I'm happy to take volunteers or input. I'm gonna say that we have the recommendation, and then it'll be up to the city manager and the mayor in terms of how that's gonna move, how and when that would move forward. But certainly appreciate the assistance. If there's a couple of folks that raise their hand that I can outreach to as that moves forward, I'd appreciate it. So I see Paul.
Yeah.
I'll also volunteer, or unless John, you want to do it?
Well, I thought sure, I'll do it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, through the group, through Alex, what I'm going to do is let you guys have a discussion, and I'm going to go ahead and leave. But I wanted to thank everybody for the 8 years of attendance on the rail. And you guys will be seeing me, even though this election obviously changed a few things. But you'll have a new face. I don't know who that face will be, and that will be up to next year's mayor. But I think I don't see you guys until next year. So thank everybody, and have a free discussion.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you for your service.
Good luck
thank
to
you
you.
very much.
All the years of service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much so.
So I'd like to nominate Kerry. You know, he's done a lot for the committee. He doesn't live anywhere near the rail, but I mean, he's definitely gone above and beyond in terms of helping out Narissa with the quiet zone, the negotiation with CALTRAIN over the station closure, the quad gates, and getting a very good agreement for the town. I think he's done a great job representing our committee too, whenever we've had an issue with CALTRAIN, with high-speed rail, getting information for us and helping us work on policy. I don't know if anyone else has had comments on Kerry.
Yeah, he's stuck with us for a lot of years, and he's been there with support when we needed it. He's come in with good ideas quite frequently, and he has kept his pulse on a lot of the activity around the peninsula that the rest of us did not really have access to.
I would second all of that. I think he's helped us a great deal, both in transmitting our views and opinions to the council, and engaging and keeping us informed as to directions that the council was interested in. And just, I think he's gone, I mean, I don't know, this is the only town committee I've ever been on, but so he's the first council member interacting with the committee that I've ever observed. But I think he did more than I might have expected in terms of the effort and the collaboration and all the rest of it. Now, I suspect there are going to be, other proclamations as he leaves the council, and I don't know exactly how ours would fit into that, but it seems to me we as a committee could at least draft some kind of statement of appreciation and forward it to the council, something.
I don't know if the next council meeting will necessarily be the one where they make these proclamations. Robert may have some better idea. It might take a little bit of time for them to, go through some of the wording and when they want to introduce it. Certainly the next council meeting, well, it's too late for that. But maybe the one in mid-December may be too soon, with the new council members coming in. So, Go ahead, Robert.
I think that there's going to be the swearing in of the new council member at the next meeting. But if there are language items that you want to pass on, please email me soon, and we'll try and help facilitate.
But my point was just, I don't know if it necessarily has to be at the next council meeting where this occurs. It could be at a January 1 or even a February 1.
It could be, but I think that in an effort to help facilitate, the sooner that we can get.
Oh, okay. Then.
Assuming that's the wish of the entire committee.
Yes. Go ahead, Jack. I see your hand up.
Okay, Jack, you're muted. Why don't you go ahead and try and unmute?
Jack, you got to unmute yourself.
Can't you do that, Robert?
I have an ask to unmute button, and I've done that.
Oh,
But he's got to unmute. He has to unmute.
gotta do it himself.
At one point, I did mute because there was a bit of an echo from there. So
The bottom left-hand corner, Jack.
Well, while he's doing, I'll stop talking as soon as he gets it sorted out. But I think if at this next council meeting, surely words are going to be said about Kerry.
yes,
And I don't know whether it'll be Rick that says them or who, but it would be nice, I think, to have a statement from us at that point that they could refer to or not refer to as they saw fit.
Well, and Paul, how long were you chair during his stay? 7 years?
Me? Yeah, something like that. It was a long time.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
actually
you get
wanted
to
to
write
call
the statement.
To make a presentation for his 7 years of Kerry's 8 years. But I'll leave that up to you.
I would be happy to contribute. I'll sit down and write some words and ship them off to Robert.
thank you.
If that's the appropriate thing to do. I'll
I
do
think
the
it is.
same thing for Narissa.
I think Jack has been unmuted.
Go ahead, Jack.
You're on, Jack.
Yeah, I nominated Paul Jones. Did that go through? For recognition for his many years of dedicated service as chair of the rail committee?
He's not leaving us, is he?
Yeah. This item was primarily geared toward those who are imminently leaving or have left the rail committee.
Well, I'm not dead yet, but any day now.
Well, give us a little heads up.
Hopefully in another 30 years, we'll make that when
You
High
like
Speed Rail
Paul-
really is dead,
Got 3
but
years.
Paul Jones lives on.
No, I'm not good for more than 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Well, let's keep you till we get
Yeah.
the quad gates in and the quiet zone extended.
Yeah.
That would be a dream. That would be wonderful.
So we have so I'll make the motion. I make the motion to recognize Kerry Wiest for his contributions to the rail committee as the council liaison.
Does Jim second?
Okay. Do I need another second, or is that
No,
good
that's
enough,
fine.
Robert? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? The motion passes.
Do you want a motion for Narissa as well?
We already have it.
We already had that. It was unanimous.
Oh, we already did that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you get old enough, your memory doesn't hang in there very well.
It was actually very super fast. It was so obvious. I think we were just said, let's just vote for it because we know it's going to happen. We don't need to repeat everything she's done, but because it's so obvious to everyone else.
Okay,
Uh,
fine.
Robert, if you need help on,
We had a motion for Paul Jones yet.
No, I am not dead yet, Jack. Wait.
so this item is for those past members or soon to depart members from the committee, we, in general, will recognize members when they've left or are about to leave.
Okay.
Robert, if you need any help with Carrie's proclamation, I can volunteer, and I think Paul also volunteer.
Well, thank you.
Any other nominations for past members or any other comments? If not, we'll move on to item 8, committee and staff member comments. Oh, I'm sorry, item 6, committee and staff member comments. Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. Any future agenda items members want to put?
Did we agree that high-speed rail would do something next meeting?
I'll see what I can do in terms of getting them on. I don't know if it'll be the next meeting or one of the ones after, but we'll work with them. They recently gave us a presentation when the EIR was released. And so we'll try and get them at one of the upcoming meetings.
When is the closing on the EIR? When do they publicize what they do?
It's closed.
I know it's closed, but their response is forthcoming, I assume.
Oh,
They
middle of next
anticipate
year.
About a year?
Yeah.
A year?
Yeah.
Are they gonna bury themselves or what?
This is high speed, Greg. It's high speed.
Right.
High-speed rail is pretty slow. It's gonna take them a year to review the report.
Well, they're
45
busy.
days to prepare.
They're busy spending money as fast as they can before our case comes to the appellate court.
Before what, Paul?
Before our case comes to the Court of Appeals.
Oh, okay.
There has never been a court date for that, and it's over a year now since the hearing that we're appealing. That was one that you may have been there too, Greg. We went to Sacramento, and the judge knew what he was going to do the minute we all sat down, and was very bored through all the arguments that Stu Flashman presented, and then gave the Attorney General everything they wanted. And that has been appealed by
We could file a motion for action, I think, but Jim's not.
Let's stay on the agenda, guys.
Yeah, okay, so.
we're talking about new agenda items now.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, we should get an agenda item on filing a motion to hear get that appeal on the calendar. I think there's a legal way of doing that, but I'm not sure. But I'm sure our city attorney could let us.
I'm not sure the committee can do much about that, but I mean, if you want to, Greg, if you want to contact, I think her name's Mona, about that, you can, and it's probably just an inquiry in terms of when it's supposed to
Robert,
be
maybe
heard.
you and I could call her and just see what she thinks.
Well, what I can
Could
do.
could we have an item on next meeting's agenda of an update on the legal situation?
We can do that. I'm going to say that others have kept more up to speed on the legal status, but we can put that on the agenda.
Well, we can invite Mike Brady to come and present his view. He would be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think he would know a lot more than our own legal counsel, because
well, he does, because he's been involved in it, and he's also on the CCHSR board, and they are trying to get some action. So I think we might get a useful report from him.
Okay.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? If not, next meeting will be the 2nd of February next year. Hope everyone has a happy new year. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.